Hey Virgo, how's it going? My name's Alex, and I think I've got some oracle messages here for you today. Before I turned on the camera, I was meditating on your energy, and I saw a river rock, like a oval-shaped river stone, and a white cloth, just like a smallish white cloth, gently floated down from above and draped over this river stone. And then there was like a time lapse, like the seasons changed and the weather changed, and there was wind and there was snow and there was hot sun and all this stuff, rain and everything. And the cloth never moved, even when the wind was blowing and stuff like that. And the cloth was never disturbed, and it was just covering this river rock. And then when the time lapse stopped and everything kind of stabilized and the weather was clear, I peeked under the cloth and saw a curled up sleeping ferret instead of the river stone. It's interesting. Now when I see a river stone, I immediately think of a lingam. I don't know if you're familiar with Shiva Linga. It's just a river stone in an oval shape that generally represents Shiva, or the absolute reality, particularly in its masculine form, because it's sometimes phallic shaped, or usually you see them as football shaped when they're the river rock variety. And you can place them on like a little tablet that's called a yoni, and that represents the female, the feminine aspect of reality. So yeah, it just reminds me of that. I'm not sure if that has significance for you. And the white cloth, it was very gentle and very light, very soft. And yet it was immovable when the elements blew in, and it seemed to just protect this lingam, or this river rock. And during this time, this changing of the seasons, it was basically probably like 1 year's worth of seasonal change. And the lingam transformed into a ferret. And ferrets they're good at two things: relaxing and discovering things. We have that phrase, to ferret something out. It means to look for something and to succeed in looking for something. So here, this significance might be that, a white cloth falling from above and being like supernaturally immovable, like it was really strange, with the rain and the wind and everything, that this cloth just didn't move. It looked really unnatural or supernatural. So I think of like divine protection coming from above to protect your holy place, your holy part of yourself. The practices, the spiritual practices you do, are just your soul, your Atman, your deep essence. And your spiritual self, or this aspect of you, was protected by this gentle divine energy from all the elements, and transformed into something that is good at relaxing and good at discovering things. So maybe there's something about learning how to discover things in a state of relaxation. That could be meditation. When you relax and you discover parts of yourself with it, you go deep within yourself and you can discover spiritual reality within while relaxing. Or just having a relaxed mind can lead to deeper insights about anything, about a situation, about a problem you're having, about something you want to learn about. Having a relaxed and clear mind lets you open up to new information a lot better. It lets you absorb information. It helps you observe and to notice things that you otherwise wouldn't notice if you were not in a relaxed state of mind. So maybe you've got to combine this relaxation with discovery, find out how they can work together. Maybe work with the ferret as a spirit animal for a little while. And then I pulled an I Ching hexagram for you. You got hexagram 48, replenishing, with the third line changing, so replenishing changes to darkness. Maybe the numbers 48 and 29 have some significance to you. But replenishing, this is what it sounds like. After we've been exhausted by something, it's time for replenishing. So perhaps you've been working really hard, or Something may have exhausted you or made you feel like you've exhausted your resources, and now is the time to replenish. Now is the time to draw from the well. This is like a symbol of a well. We have the elements that make up this hexagram are water over wood, and here we have the image of a wooden bucket dipping under the water, like drawing from a well. And a well in ancient China was dedicated to the king. There were parcels of land divvied up, and in the middle of those parcels would be one parcel of land with a well in it, and all the other parcels were for people's houses. And so you would have a bunch of houses all drawing from one well. And that well usually became like a marketplace or a place for workers to relax during the day and to replenish themselves, or, but the well was always dedicated to the king, that parcel of land. And so here we have this idea that we all draw from the same well. If you think of the spiritual well, the cosmic life, the cosmic water that nourishes all of us, God, the Akasha, whatever you want to think of it as, we all draw from that well, and it's dedicated to the king, right? This parcel of land, this holy space that we create. Sometimes we create a literal ritual space in which we can perform our spiritual disciplines, and that's like the parcel of land where your well is, that's dedicated to the king or to God and so forth. And whenever anyone in the world draws from that spiritual well, it's all drawing from the same aquifer, right? We all have our own wells and our own parcels of land, but it's all connected underground by that one body of water that's generally invisible, at least from the surface of the earth. And some people draw more deeply than others. Sometimes if you just draw from the surface of a well, you're going to get dirty water, maybe some brackish water. But the deeper you drop your bucket down into the water, the cooler and cleaner and clearer that water is, the more nourishing it is. So here, you need to draw deep from your own inner resources at this time and find that replenishment. Find that you'll be replenished by that universal well, and the roots of your tree will be watered. Again, this water over wood elemental symbolism, we have a tree being nourished by water. So something is growing and transforming. And I think it has a lot to do with your spiritual nature. That's what I'm getting from that sort of lingam imagery with the white cloth and the ferret. But it could be anything, really. Now this changing line here, this third line, is sort of means that wise and capable people are being underappreciated at this time, underutilized. The king is not using his people properly. Now, this could be you. You might not notice or recognize those around you who are wise and intelligent and virtuous. So make sure, if you've been a little bit aloof lately, if you're working in a group or with a family or with your friends or whatever it is, make sure you recognize the good qualities in the people around you and utilize them. They probably just want something to do. You can delegate work to people. Trust those around you who are worthy of your trust. Examine those around you. Find the virtuous, intelligent, and wise ones, and recognize those qualities, recognize them as such, and offload some of your responsibilities onto them. And you can replenish each other that way. You can work together in harmony. And this could be going on in the reverse. It could be that you are virtuous and wise and you are being undervalued or underutilized by the group you're working with. In which case, there's, if you feel like you're being underutilized, if you are in fact being underutilized or underappreciated, you might notice that there are people, or there is someone around you who wants to know what you know. Or you know something that the others do not, and you can teach it at this time to step into a teaching role at this time would be very beneficial for you and for those around you. Teaching would be very nourishing, or maybe perhaps to become a student, again by recognizing wise, virtuous, intelligent people. Maybe you're the one who wants to know something that somebody else knows, and you can approach them and ask them to teach you. But whichever direction this is going, maybe there's a little bit of both. Maybe you can teach some and they can teach some and you can learn some. But there's a lot of teaching and learning that can happen from each other, but you kind of have to like demonstrate it, ask for it, just sort of gently make it happen at this time. Notice if there's someone who's trying to learn from you, and take that person seriously. Tell them what they want to know, teach them what you know. And vice versa, if you're trying to get a teacher's attention, like approach them and have a conversation about it. Because at this time, you can be like a candle that lights other candles. Or you can have your candle lit by another candle. It's, that drawing from the same well, and just, a well, like, essentially never runs out. You're constantly using it, constantly drawing from it, but there's always water there. Now, of course, that's not a literal fact. We have to manage resources properly and everything like that in the real physical 3D world. Wells can run out, groundwater moves, or whatever. But the analogy is sound, where you're constantly using something and it's constantly being replenished and refilled, and it never gets exhausted, and you can just keep drawing from it and drawing from it and drawing from it. So that's the source that you're going to find within yourself. Those are those deep, deep resources that you can dig down deeper than most in this cosmic well, or in this well of inner resources, and tap into that infinite resource that's within us all at this time. And whether that's through learning or through teaching or through meditation, relaxation, and discovery, or a combination of all of these things, the result will be that you find within yourself that deep, deep, deep spiritual well, that infinite resource that is always there to help you through times of exhaustion, times when you need to learn something, times when you need more energy, healing, what have you. You'll find it within yourself. So I'm going to develop this a little bit further for you now by pulling some cards for you. I'm going to focus on an aspect of reality here. What does Virgo need to know? Wow, that spun directly in the center for like a good second without moving. We have the Messenger, which is, in this case, a little image of a feather. That's pretty congruent with that floating cloth, the cloth that floated from above and covered the lingam, or the river rock. So here we have this from the above to the below type movement, right? This divine messenger activity, where something from the spirit descends to the earth, or something from heaven descends to the earth, something from spirit makes itself known to intelligible beings, humans, and so forth, in the physical. So yeah, there's definitely some spiritual nourishment coming in for you. Some gentle type of divine protection. I don't really know what it is, but it's like, I get that idea of how the gentle overcomes the strong. This little white cloth, this little divine spiritual protection that floated down, that just withstood all of the elements that nature threw at it. So there's some type of supernatural protection that doesn't really look like protection. It just looks like a dainty little white cloth, or just a little feather that fell off of a duck or something. But there's something deeply, deeply protective and magical about it that will help you. So maybe that could be what's being underappreciated. Maybe you're not quite seeing some divine protection that is being offered to you, or that you're being covered by. And you don't see it as protection because it just looks too gentle. So maybe look for these gentle and soft aspects of divinity around you or within you that are actually functioning as a protective device of some kind, and nourish that protection, or just allow it, like gracefully receive the protection, acknowledge that it's there, and it might greatly benefit you and help you transform, have an inner transformation. It'll protect that inner reality from the elements and let it grow into a sleeping ferret. Here we got the Chariot. This is some Cancerian energy, some lunar energy. This is understanding good and evil. This is taming the horses that draw the cart. Well, these are sphinxes, I believe. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. There's like a little image. It looks like a fence down there. Oh God, it's beyond the focal distance. There's like a little tic-tac-toe board looking thing. And that's actually very similar to this symbol for this I Ching hexagram, which just is, it's literally just a tic-tac-toe board with a dot in the middle. And that's like the parcels of land with the well in the middle. And this looks very, very similar to that down in the corner. So yeah, in a literal sense, maybe you're divvying up, maybe you're making some sort of civil engineering plan for your town, some allotments and easements. You have a development plan that you want to bring to your town council. In which case, I think you'll find support for it. I think it'll go forward. And I think if you appreciate those around you, this project will take off. But here, this is coming out on the messenger here. This is like, yeah, how do I put that into words? There is some real protection that's helping you carry you forward and take you forward on your spiritual journey. You know, the Chariot really is, it's about using the yin and the yang, you know, these two sphinxes, and mastering them and allowing them to do their job of carrying us forward in this reality. And you know, the Charioteer has all this armor, and it's a very lunar card, and the moon is generally quite gentle seeming, right? It's quite feminine. But here it's like also very, very protective. So yeah, there's definitely some sort of protection that you might feel like you don't have, but you really do. You're being asked to become aware of the balance of yin and yang that you've achieved in your life. And achieving that balance might have exhausted you. Your spiritual journey or your inner development may have just been absolutely exhausting. And that can happen on the spiritual path, where we dedicate so much time and energy, you know, because just making those little choices every day to develop our character and all that stuff that's really, really difficult. It can be absolutely exhausting, especially when everyone around us is being so selfish and you're acting contrary to them for the sake of preserving and developing your soul. And it just sometimes doesn't seem worth it. And it seems like the world is just picking at us bit by bit, exploiting us and taking advantage of us, because spiritual people tend to be kind. And the world often mistakes kindness for weakness and picks kind people apart, attacks kind people, suppresses and oppresses kind people, takes advantage and exploits. And yeah, that's absolutely exhausting. So there is some gentle divine protection that you are being offered, and you just need to notice it at this time. And it will really carry you forward. It will give you spiritual insight. It may come with a very specific message meant just for you. If you can quiet your mind, relax yourself, tune into some inner discovery, you might get a really important piece of information. Nurturing. Look at that. Here we have an image of a skull with a coin in its mouth. And that's like a cicada down on the bottom here, and an open book. Yeah, like a cicada, you might have been engaging in a lot of self-sacrifice lately without getting anything in return. You know, cicadas don't have mouths. When they are born, they just live and die without consuming anything, and they become food for everything. Everything gets nourished by the skins and corpses of cicadas. All the animals eat them. It's like a tasty treat for even squirrels. They're very, very nutritious for the soil. Cicadas nurture an entire forest every time they show up. What is it, every 7 years on the East Coast, I think it is, of the United States? There's just freaking enough cicadas to blot out the sun sometimes. And you might be feeling exhausted and having self-sacrificed so much, but you are really being nourished the way you have nourished others. With it's that idea that as you nourish, you are nourished, and this feeling, because when the cicadas, they live and they lay their eggs also during that time, deep in the ground, in the soil, and they gestate there. So while this generation of cicadas sacrifices itself, another generation is being nourished by the soil, which the previous generation is nourishing in turn. And there's this cycle of nourishment that you'll realize you're actually not being drained or exhausted. It's part of a cycle of nourishing. And so to the individual cicada, it's being sacrificed without consuming anything. But to the whole genus of cicada, it's an infinite loop of nourishment and replenishment that never ends. There's an infinite amount of energy there to keep the generations of cicadas going. So to like the great oversoul of cicadas, it sustains itself. It's a very special type of insect that nourishes all and nourishes itself simultaneously. So step out of the consciousness of a single cicada and step into the consciousness of the swarm, and even higher than that, of the oversoul of all generations of cicadas, and see this cycle and be part of that higher transcendent cycle. And that might be part of this protection, is just a change in perspective. That's why it's so gentle, this protection, because it's such a tenuous, simple thing. It's just maybe changing the way you see something can bring that protection. You realize, oh, I actually am protected from all of these deleterious influences. They're actually not affecting me as deeply as I thought they were, and I have this infinite well within me that is always there, has always been there, and you will discover how to effectively draw from it more and more and more with this insight, with this message, this sort of insight from above. So I'm going to pull one last token for you, Virgo. Round this all out. What does Virgo need to know? We have the ascetic. Come on, focus here. The ascetic. All right, there it is. And the number 10. So here we have, you see this guy with his eyes closed and his big old nose sticking out and his third eye burning. And that third eye looks a lot like a lingam, that oval shape. So that's congruent. And again, this coming out on the messenger, this is like, yeah, in a state of deep meditation and relaxation, you will learn crucial divine insight, maybe gain direct messages that are very, very helpful for you. And you'll realize like the infinitude and immortality of your spirit. That'll be something that comes to you now in these states of relaxed discovery, in this third eye state you can work with. You can really have a transcendent state of consciousness at this time if that's what you're interested in, if you're interested in consciousness expansion and self-awareness and spiritual awareness, developing maybe your psychic senses, clairvoyance and so on, maybe developing some astral organs to see into the astral world or things like that, spiritualizing your thoughts, any of that sort of stuff right now will be extremely effective at this time and beneficial. Not that it's not effective and beneficial at other times, but at this time for you, I think it will bear very good fruit. And just seeing things from a higher perspective, not just a different perspective, but from a higher, transcendent perspective, will really transform you and carry you forward at this point. And there's like someone knocking on your door, and like the door of your third eye, that there's someone that wants to teach you something, and it might be like a spiritual master, like an ascended master, or an angelic guide of some kind, or some non-human entity, or perhaps a non-corporeal, previously human being, or something like that, or some great teacher who's still a human being. Someone wants to appreciate you for your wisdom and virtue, and perhaps this underappreciation is going to be alleviated by experiencing states of relaxed discovery and meditation. And that's maybe part of the conversation you can have with this teacher, is like demonstrating a willingness to learn, or a willingness, open the door that they're knocking on, and show yourself and be like, I'm ready to expand my mind and to feel replenished, to be replenished, to find that infinite well within myself. Just announce to God, to the universe, to all of reality, to your angelic guides, I'm prepared now for what comes next on my spiritual ascension on this path. I am prepared now. So, Virgo, I think that's where the Oracle and I are going to leave it for you tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I always appreciate you stopping by. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you next time.